So, hello, good evening for everyone. My name is Wu Zhang Hong. Today, me and Kelvin Teo will be the moderator for this event. Kelvin Teo, can you show yourself?
Good afternoon, guys. My name is Kevin Thiel. I will introduce myself. My tech is IoT Internet of Things, and I will be the moderator for the additional question and for the ending. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Kelvin Teo. So, the topics of our event is about the employee and employment trend. Therefore, the purpose of this event is to understanding the company hiring trends. First of all, I would like to say thank you to Miss Madeline Julia, willing to become our speaker for this event. So before we enter the session, can our speaker introduce yourself?
Sure, thank you very much. So my name is Madeline. I am the principal lead for People and Culture for the Center of Applied Data Science. I've been in the organization for about 6 months now, so still fairly new. But I've had about 24 years of working experience. Some of those years were as an internal HR person, so I've held country HR head roles for a number of organizations in different industries. And I've also held a regional talent head role for Asia in the past. I've also done consulting. And my first 2 years of my career was in education when I was a lecturer at IMT University. So that's a bit about me.
Oh, it's interesting. Okay, so and now I will introduce the flow of this event. So this event will have mainly four main questions and 7 additional questions. Lastly, we will having a Q&A session for everyone to ask questions and interact with the speaker in the end. So, all right. So we begin the interview session. Okay. So the first question now is, can Miss Madeline explain about the company background, about the history, company benefits to their employee, intern, and the part-time, and about the culture of the company?
Okay, great. Thank you very much for those questions. I will, if it's okay with you, I will share a quick deck that I've prepared that sort of answers some of these questions, if that's okay. So I'll just share my screen now.
Right, sure.
So I've actually picked out a few slides that I thought was relevant from our onboarding or orientation program. So, that answers some of the questions that you had provided. So a little bit about the company. What is the Center of Applied Data Science? Basically, we're a company that provides a skills intelligence platform. We started out a few years ago, around 2015, as a training company. And then we evolved to do training and consulting, which we still do. But our ambition is to become, a unicorn born out of Malaysia within the next 3 to 5 years by becoming a platform company. So, we are, reorganizing ourselves towards that direction. What is our vision and mission? Our vision is to future-proof the world by improving data literacy. As you're all aware, everybody talks about Industry or IR 4.0, where a lot of jobs or processes will be, made digital or will be automated, and a lot of that, will be governed by artificial intelligence going forward. A lot of people, I think, fear that there is going to be job loss as a result of that. And our aim as a company is to prevent that from happening by ensuring that people's skill sets are developed as far as data literacy is concerned, so that they can compete in a new economy, basically going forward. So, our mission is to make the workforce become more data literate at the end of the day. Yeah. So what we do, we help to predict, create, and solve talent problems around data literacy. So I'll give one particular example. Instead of speaking to the slides, I think it'll be easier for me to give you examples of what we do. So Malaysia Airlines, as you are aware, over the last couple of years, it's been a very difficult time for the aviation and travel industry because of the pandemic. So, Malaysia Airlines, rather than lay off a majority of their workforce, thought, why don't we actually upskill and retrain some of our workforce to become more data literate so that they can actually, do other positions. Instead of becoming a cabin crew, perhaps they can become something like a junior data scientist, for example. So, Malaysia Airlines being one of our key, customers, important customers, we help them in their journey to be able to accomplish this. So just a bit about, what it is that we do, right? So to answer some of the questions that you mentioned just now, a bit more about the company. We started off as a small local outfit, around 2015, but we've grown basically. So we're now a regional, company. In fact, our headquarters is in Singapore. Like I mentioned, we do have intentions to become, a unicorn in the next few years, but our operational center is in Kuala Lumpur, in Bangsa South. And we have teams, we have about we're still fairly small, but we're growing. We're double our size now compared to where we were a year ago. So we've got employees from 12 countries around the world because we are a work from anywhere organization at the end of the day. We truly believe in being flexible. And right now we have offices in these few countries that you see across Asia, specifically ASEAN. Yeah. So a little bit about some of our core clients. We have a lot of clients, the who's who of Malaysia, your big Malaysian companies, your Malaysian conglomerates would be typically our clients. But we are expanding, to include multinational companies. We've signed a couple of deals recently with big MNCs, with offices elsewhere besides just Malaysia. And like I mentioned just now, we're also expanding in the region, in ASEAN. So we've signed quite a number of deals in other countries as well with other clientele there. So what we do, like I mentioned, everything from helping companies with designing a strategy to become more data driven and making sure that their employees are more data literate. We do skills training. I'll show you the platform in a short while, what it looks like. Where we partner with people like Coursera, LinkedIn Learning, Udemy, to provide specific skills training. But we also have our own courses that are certified that we also provide as well. Talent development, so all of that training and development initiatives can be done online through our platform. We provide learning paths basically so that if someone wants to become a head data scientist, for example, in 5 years' time, what is the kind of development path that you need to go for in order to achieve that ambition. We also have expertise in our platform. We connect you with other data scientists so that you can have that community basically to be able to confer with each other. And we also have certification, like I mentioned, some courses we have actually assigned and certified. So you can add that to your profile, basically, and makes yourself more employable as well going forward. And it helps with your career journey. So how different are we from something like or somebody like LinkedIn Learning, for example? So we actually provide the full suite. Like LinkedIn Learning, for example, you have to go in, register as an individual. Some courses are free, some courses you need to pay. But for us, it's the full suite, so it's not just limited to just the courses that LinkedIn Learning provides. It's other courses that are there as well. And the whole talent map or journey is set out for you in our platform. So it's a full suite sort of talent management system that actually looks at the skills that you would need to become more data literate. And even when we compare ourselves with some of the other companies that provide advisory or consulting services, particularly the big four, they do that more on a B2B model, business to business model, but they don't necessarily, provide all of the skills intelligence, the training and all that on their platforms because they are more in the advisory capacity to businesses. So we do all of that on our platform. And we do that on a B2B, business to business arrangement with key clients that I mentioned just now. And we also do that on a B2C basis, direct to customers, meaning that, a lot of our platform, we're actually going to be going through a major launch later on. And whether you are an SPM graduate waiting for your results, and wanting to pick up certain skill set, or whether you are fresh out of university wanting to pick up a certain skill set to become more employable, or you could be an old person like me, and wanting to reinvent your career, basically, to become more digital in that sense. So you can actually, go for these courses that are online. We're planning to make, quite a number of them free so that people are able to get the full benefits of that from our platform. And that segue into the next slide. So what I mentioned just now, making sure that people are more employable is something that we call at CADS Project 2100, where we really want to focus on the younger generation in particular, not discounting the older generation, but particularly, those that are around 15 to 34 years old that can go for the courses that we have, so that they become more employable at the end of the day, right? And if they become more employable and they get better jobs, their community goes up as well. The community becomes better and the country becomes better as a result. So that's really what we want to focus on, partly as part of our social enterprise network and solutions going forward. Okay. So there was a question about our culture. So at CADS, we call ourselves a quasi-startup. Although we were first established in 2015, but it was predominantly a training company back then. But now we are a platform company, and it's completely different, competing in our space now compared to before. So our culture is pretty much very open. We're not bureaucratic, completely open door. Anybody can speak to anybody within the organization, and we help each other out. It's not. There are some organizations which I think are quite big. They tend to be quite siloed. I've worked in some of those organizations myself, because if that's what you do, that's what you do. But in our organization, we believe in transferability of skill set. So there's high amount of training that happens in the organization, and a lot of talent mobility as well, in the sense of changing people between departments so that they get the exposure with different types of work or different types of departments, different types of objectives, basically, at the end of the day. Yeah. So that's a little bit about our culture. And this is a little bit in terms of our core values. So it feeds very much into our culture as well. Like I mentioned, it's very open door, very flexible, but at the end of the day, we do talk a lot about accountability. And I'll mention this, in some of the later part of our discussion in relation to some of your questions that were sent earlier as well. So very much outcome driven. Nobody is really, going to be watching the time clock, in terms of what time our employees come in and out, but it's all about the outcome or the deliverables at the end of the day. Yeah, the performance. And happy to answer any questions that you've got in terms of what I've just talked about or presented also. Yeah.
Based on my opinion, this is an amazing company that provide unlimited annual leave for for their employee, and I believe doesn't have one company like CATS. Besides that, company also provide a lot of training to their employee, which might increase a lot of skills as an employee in the CATS as well. Yeah. Before we move on to the question two, did anyone have any questions?
I think we can move on.
All right, so we move on to the question two. Is it okay?
Sure.
All right. So the second interview question is, what are the hiring trends in the company? For example, what the document needed for the internship or the job application, and the process of the recruitment and the chance of getting hired.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. So as an intern, we're always looking for good interns. Right? We would require three documents in particular. Just a one-page summary of your CV or your resume will do. Your educational transcript, number two, and number three, if you are looking at an internship through your university, the letter from your university as well. So just those three things to apply as an intern. And if let's say you've already graduated and you want to apply for a permanent position, then it's just your CV or resume and a copy of your degree. In terms of the process, the recruitment process, like I mentioned, we have our CADS AI platform. So we actually take all our new, recruits or potential recruits, potential employees into the platform, basically, where it depends on which position. If you're on a technical position, then there might be a more technical skills analysis or assessment that is being done that you'll have to go through. And if you're applying for non-technical positions, and we have quite a number of support category positions as well in the organization, we still take them through the assessment on our platform, but it won't be on the specific technical skill set. It will be more in terms of the personality, in that sense. And then once new potential new recruits actually go through the assessment on the platform, we have for more junior level positions, it tends to be just one interview, but we make it a panel interview, right? So we don't believe in necessarily getting somebody to be interviewed, three, 4 times before being hired. It's one interview, but it will be a panel whereby it will be with the hiring leader, so the position that this person would report into, a member of the HR team, as well as one internal partner. So another, manager or department head, which closely works with the department that you are applying for. So typically, it will be three people that will be interviewing in the panel interview. Chances of getting hired, pretty high. I mean, at the end of the day, we are growing as an organization. It all depends on the outcome of the assessment on the platform, as well as on the interview. Like I mentioned earlier on, we were double our size this year compared to what we are last year. And we're looking at exponential growth, in terms of not just growing in Malaysia, but growing in the region as well going forward. And next year, we hope to be able to grow even further to the US, basically.
Right. Thank you to Miss Budirin for the second questionnaires. So now we move on to the third one. So the third question is Miss Madeline can give 4 hiring trends which is necessary for a company.
Sorry, Miss.
Sorry, Miss. I think we cannot hear your voice.
Um, can you hear me now?
Yes, Miss.
Okay, great. Thank you. So, going back to the question, I thought that it was a very good question, and I took some time to think about that actually. In terms of the 4 hiring trends, I would say that the first one is really about specific skill set. I remember, back in the times of the dinosaurs when I was going to university at UM, it was very different. In terms of we graduated with a degree, for example, and then employers would hire us based on our degree. Not saying that degrees are not relevant. Degrees are still very much relevant, but a lot of companies are moving towards skill set these days. So I've interviewed people, young grads from some of the top universities in the world, in previous organizations. But at the end of the day, we may not have hired them because they don't have the specific skill set that we're looking for. And what I mean by skill set here is, I'll give you an example. If we're hiring a junior data scientist, for example, some of the skill set that's very important for us is things like, how good someone is in Excel, right? It's still very relevant. Tableau, data visualization and dashboard, Power BI, even, those are some of the skill set that we would be looking for in a junior scientist. If that person has Python or SQL, even better, almost a guaranteed hire. And those, some of those courses are taught at universities, programs, but it's important, for you to be able to pick up those skill sets as you're studying for your degree, through courses, through online certification, whatever kind of, fashion or manner that you can get certified, do that, because a lot of organizations are looking for more specific skills these days rather than just a general degree, for example. So that's number one. Number two, not just at CADS, but I think, for employers everywhere, it's also analytical and problem solving skills. I mentioned just now, I've interviewed, some fresh graduates from some of the top universities that are not even in Malaysia, prestigious universities in the UK or US, for example. And when we give them a very simple, sort of like problem to solve, sometimes they struggle, because I think sometimes, back in those days particularly, a lot of it was very much book learning, and not necessarily skills that can be applied, directly in real life or in an office setting, in a corporate setting. So for us and for a lot of employees, the ability to analyze things, the ability to look at a problem, analyze it, and how to solve it, is very, very important. And a lot of that, people won't tell you the solutions. You go to companies, sometimes universities, the academic, your lecturers and your academic staff are awesome. I had some really good academic, teachers throughout my life. But at the end of the day, some things you need to be able to. Nobody's going to give you the answer, so you need to figure out the answer, right? And that's why the analytical and problem solving skills is very important, right? Third is actually accountability. Um, and why I say that is important is that a lot of people think that, oh, accountability is probably something that, only matters when you are in senior management position. No, even as a young, fresh graduate entering the workforce, you need to own what it is that you do. And you need to own your mistakes as well. Mistakes are not necessarily a bad thing. The best teachers that I've had in my life, in terms of my experiences, have been through the mistakes that I have made. And what's important is don't blame other people, own up to it, be accountable for it, and learn from that whole process and journey. I think that's something that's very important, and be accountable to your colleagues, to your boss, to the people that are in the same department or company. Take pride in what it is that you do. So I think that is a hiring trend, in terms of people, organizations or companies looking at young people that will be accountable at the end of the day when they join the company. And the fourth thing is communication ability. And when I say communication ability, it's not having perfect English or perfect BM or perfect Mandarin or perfect Cantonese. No, it's the ability to communicate with each other. And I think this happens particularly when we are coming out of a pandemic. A lot of your classes might have been online, over the last couple of years. It's and a lot of jobs and organizations, most of my meetings are online these days. They're not necessarily face to face. There are more and more face to face meetings, but it's still largely online. But the ability to be able to come across the screen and connect with your colleague or the person that you are talking to with about work on an individual basis, as a person to person basis, rather than just a face on the screen, is, I think, something that's quite important. And as far as, I absolutely believe that mother tongue, whatever your mother tongue may be, whether it's Mandarin, Tamil, or Cantonese, is important. The national language, Bahasa Malaysia, of course, is very important as well. I mean, there's been a lot of, hue and cry about it by politicians recently. But what's also very important is English, particularly because a lot of you will be going into multinational organizations, and eventually you'll be working with other people whose main modem of communication that is similar to yours might be English. They might not know BM. They might know Mandarin. We're doing a lot of business with China these days, and that's great, but English, I think, is still primarily, a large part of the main communication channel that is happening right now. So yeah, so I would say communication ability would be the fourth one that companies are looking for.
All right, thank you, Miss Madidi. So what we know about for this question is there are four important skills that Madeline provide for us. The first one is the specific skill set. The second is the problem solving skills. The third one is the accountability, and the fourth is communication ability. I believe that is also important for us to get for entering a company. All right, so now we move on to the fourth question. So the fourth question is, what is your suggestion for the student to easily get employed after graduation?
All right, thank you for that. I thought that was a very good, very interesting question as well. I'm going to leave it to sort of four main steps as well. Yeah. So the first one is create a resume or a CV that really stands out. And what I mean by stand out is not how it looks. Of course, how it looks in terms of how it's designed and how pretty it is. It does, it is compelling. Sometimes people only have a few seconds to look at your CV before deciding. So you want your CV to stand out. But beyond your CV just looking pretty, what you need to do is mention the projects that you have been involved in. Don't just focus on, the academic part is important, so, do mention your academic part as well. But it's also equally important for you to mention the real life projects that you have been involved in. If you have, been an intern, what were you working on as an intern? Talk about those accomplishments. If you were working on, a project as part of your university studies as your graduation requirement, what was the outcome of that project? What was the impact? I think that those are things that you really need to add to make your CV stand out from the rest. I cannot emphasize that enough, because in the real world, nobody is going to take 5 minutes to take a look at your CV and read all the details. A lot of people will just take a look at it for a few seconds, 1 minute, 2 minutes tops, and then make the decision then, whether or not you go on to the next round. So it's important for you to start your foot off a good ground from the onset, from the beginning. Second, network, network. And what I mean by network is go to industry events. If there are industry events in your particular field that are out there, whether it's online or in real life, go for it. Try to get invited to those events. Get connected to people on LinkedIn. A lot of employers still use LinkedIn as a major communication tool. There's a lot of other apps that are out there, and maybe one day we'll see a successor to LinkedIn, a different platform that people are using. But for now, people are still, your employers are still using LinkedIn quite a lot. So get connected to people. Don't feel afraid that just because somebody is a head of department or a CEO that you don't want to send them a LinkedIn invite. Try. You don't try, you don't know. And then when you do get connected to these people, drop them a note, introduce yourself. Don't just get connected on LinkedIn and then keep silent. Drop them a note. It doesn't have to be a long one, just a short one will do. Just introduce yourself, say that you're happy to meet their acquaintance, and whatever it is that you feel is important about yourself. Prepare, a quick elevator speech. If someone wants to know you in 30 seconds, how would you talk about yourself in 30 seconds? And how would you make that 30 seconds count that set you apart from the rest of your peers, for example? In terms of networking, also have an active social media profile that focuses on the work that you are doing or the work that you want to do, the kind of projects that you're working on, or the kind of projects that it could even be CSR projects, community projects that you're working on that sets you apart from the rest. So talk about that in your social media profile. It's okay to talk about your boyfriend or your girlfriend or your cat or your dog or where you will go on holiday or the burger that you had for lunch. All of that is fine. But, maybe, you might want to create a different social media platform that focuses on the more professional part of your life, for example, and share that across. Mm. The third suggestion, in terms of how do you make yourself more employable after graduation, is start early. And this is an advice that I wish I had given myself, more than 20 years ago when I graduated. Don't wait until you have graduated or about to graduate before you start looking at, internships or work experience or connecting, networking with other people. You should be doing that basically from year one. Start networking, start building your professional social media profile from the first year of university, because you will have time over the next 3 to 4 years of your study to actually build your profile over time. And I think that that's important. So if you haven't already done it, it's not too late. Get started on it now. If you have younger sisters or brothers, or if you have juniors, in your university, advise them about the same thing as well. Don't wait until the final year. They should be doing this in year one. Okay. And the fourth one, that was a bit difficult. I was thinking about what would be another tip. I think the last tip that I would like to share, in terms of getting noticed, is whatever it is that you can publish. So it's sort of linked back to number two. And I'm not talking about publishing in terms of academic journals. If there are platforms or social media sites or websites that you can publish certain things, like whether it is the projects that you're working on, or an idea that you have, or something that you're working on in your spare time. Perhaps you're developing a simple app in your spare time. Talk about that. Mention that. Publish whatever content that you can. At the end of the day, when people see your name more and more times, it will pop up. There have been several times in my career whereby I don't know these particular people, but because I've seen them, in a lot of the websites or social media sites that I follow, young people, young graduates, but they're very active. So later on, when I'm hiring for a particular position, that name will pop up in my head, out of nowhere, because I've seen it a few times online. So get yourself noticed, basically.
You, Miss Madeline, for the question 4. So now I will pass to Kelvin Theo to handle the next session.
Good evening. I want to ask Miss Madeline about the additional question that relevant to this company. The first question is, do you think that the employee working from home during the pandemic is affect the effectiveness?
So, another good question. I don't think that it affects effectiveness of an organization or of a job. Let's face it, at the end of the day, the pandemic has escalated things a lot faster for us. I remember, about 14 years ago, I was one of the or the organization that I worked for, rather, was one of the first organizations that promoted working from home. Not a lot of organizations were doing that around the 2006, 2008 timeframe, but we promoted that basically. It started off by we did it one day a week, sorry, one day a month, and then it escalated to one day a week. And then after that, we implemented 2 days a week work from home. And in fact, the company's outcome was even more successful as a result. We exceeded our targets, and that is because at the end of the day, it's really about outcome. People will work in the climate that they feel more comfortable in. There are some jobs where you can't work from home. necessarily. There are some jobs, if you are in certain types of call center, or if somebody is doing something like, for example, a manufacturing plant, you can't work from home. But a lot of organizations, where it's possible, are moving towards work from home. And I think it will become more and more of a norm, and the pandemic has escalated that even further. I think that organizations need to be, well prepared to make sure that the effectiveness is not impacted by that, and that's working together with employees, to make sure that the employees have whatever, if they need a laptop, if they need, a good Wi-Fi signal at home, whatever it is that the company can help to do that and make that happen is what we need to do.
Thank you for your response. Can I ask one more question?
Mhm.
In Miss opinion, what will be the main development direction of the industry in the next 5 or 10 years?
Sure. So, like I mentioned just now, a lot of things are going to be automated, right? A lot of things are going to be AI enabled. So I think that, and you would probably hear the same thing, on the news or whatever, news programs or literature that you're following. So a lot of jobs will go from being manual to being digital at the end of the day. It's already started. It has been starting, from quite a number of years ago, and that trend will continue and will become even more going forward. And that's why CADS believes in making sure that people are data literate, so that they can compete in that kind of economy. I know, for example, I give an example of one of my friends, ex-colleague. She is about 55 years old, I think now. Her job has been a personal administrator, a PA, or secretary for most of her life. And she has been a secretary to some of the more important business people in Malaysia in the past. But she, it's been difficult for her to find a job, even before the pandemic a few years ago, because a lot of organizations, they don't need as many personal assistants or secretaries as they did before. Last time, even if you were a middle manager, you had a secretary. Now you probably have a secretary if you're a CEO. Even if you're head of department, you might not have a secretary. And that's because a lot of things are done online. A lot of the letters that are automated these days, that you don't need somebody to type it out, for example. A lot of the meeting schedules can be done online. You don't need somebody to schedule a meeting for you or on your behalf, as a head of department. So, those kind of jobs are becoming less and less relevant. And what I advise her to do is actually to upskill herself, in data literacy, and to be able to, make her skill set more relevant. And she's recently applied for a position as a data analyst, completely different from what she's done before as a secretary at the age of 55. But she was successful in the role, in terms of getting the role, because she was able to apply what she learned over the last couple of years. Attending all those courses, like I mentioned, skills is very important. And yes, it's a more junior role than what she was doing before, but she's very happy because she is doing something which is new, that she's learning in, and that she's able to utilize the skill set that she has learned over the last couple of years in this role.
Okay, thank you very much, Miss Madeline, for your responses. And I hope you all enjoyed this amazing event. Now, Miss Madeline will answer some question. If you have question to Miss Madeline, please raise hand or you can type in text box. Oh, there is some question in text box. I will read the question. May I know, is there any training provided for the fresh graduate employee?
Yes, we do. So we provide there are two things basically. So I mentioned a little bit about it earlier. As a fresh graduate who joins our organization as an employee, there is a lot of training that is provided. The training is going to be unique to what you need, and what the company needs. So it's not a one size fits all training approach. So for example, if the position requires you, over time to become more skilled in Python, but your Python skills are pretty basic, so then we will give you the training, because we have all of that on our platform, basically, to be able to do that. So that is, as an internal employee. Like I mentioned just now, we are also, at some point later this year, going to be making some of those trainings available for free, online. And I think as and when that happens, we will probably be reaching out, to the community, to, like, for example, APU alumni, to make sure that people are aware that this is happening.
Thank you very much. And there are a lot of questions in here. I will read the second question. The second question is, what kind of process and technology do you use to work collaboratively?
That's a good question. So, a lot of it is very much platform driven. Like I said, we are a platform company, so a lot of things, we actually utilize on our own platform as well. So those kind of processes, that kind of technology, is all in our platform. I would say that, other kinds of, process automated technology is your usual. We conduct a lot of our meetings on MS Teams. We do have a human resource management system, for example, where people who want to log in, in terms of applying for leave and all that kind of stuff, or even to communicate, like if you want to know about your colleagues, their whole profile is on our HRMS system. So you can know about their likes and dislikes, for example, by reading their profile on our system. For people who are in sales, we use Salesforce. So there are a lot of different sort of like integrated platforms, I would say, that we use to make our work more effective. So maybe I'll just go through, since there are a few questions, I'll just go through the next one directly. How will employees' performance be reviewed? Any expectations based on their positions? I love this question. So gone are the old days, right, where you used to have a once a year performance appraisal. Okay, that does not work anymore. All right, that's gone with the age of the dinosaurs. But we really encourage, and again, we're going to drive this through our platform, is having meetings and discussions. So it's not about annual performance reviews. It's about the outcome, the deliverable of the job, the work that you're doing, the project that you're working on. We encourage all our leaders to have, monthly, if possible, even weekly, meetings, coffee sessions, with their staff to understand what's going right and what's going wrong, how is work going at that particular time, for example. So we encourage more of that kind of discussions. And at the end of the day, performance will be reviewed based on the outcome, based on the deliverable. That's pretty much it. Yeah. Other than assisting unemployed through courses, does CADS have any other initiative in helping upskill housewives or those re-entering the workforce? I love that question. Yes. So like I said, Project 2100 is not just necessarily about the young. It's about making sure that people who are disadvantaged for some form or other, or people who have never necessarily been too much as the workforce, like housewives, or people who have left, to have families and things like that, or become caregivers, that they are upskilled. So this is something that we hold very true to our hearts, that we really believe in, and that's what Project 2100 is about. And, as and when we start to, communicate that and make more and more courses available online, like I said, some of which are for free, that will make them, more employable overall. So that's actually a good question, and it's something that I'm going to give a little bit further thought to in terms of how can we do an outreach to that kind of community even more. So awesome question, Nicole. Thank you. What's the most important thing that a newcomer could do to help within the first 3 months of employment? Oh, okay, good. That's another good question. I think the first 3 months of employment, what's really important is understanding the business. And when I say understanding the business, it's the business, understanding the platform. Like in our company, it means understanding the platform end to end, understanding what the whole, all the other different departments do, understanding what is success, what does success look like at CADS. And I think that's important for all our new employees to understand that, and to understand, you hear Simon Sinek asking this question, right? Always ask why. uh, Understanding the why of why we are what we are and why we are the business that we are, that's the most important thing that you can do in the 3 months. It's not just about your work list, it's not just about the tasks that you have, but it's about understanding the whole organization and the why we are in business. Very important in the first 3 months. What are the next questions? Yep, I think those are all the questions that are online.
Thank you to Miss Madeline that have answered all entire question from participant. And I want to thank you to all the participants that are willing to take part in this event. So we have come to an end for this event. We would like to express our gratitude to everyone here, especially Miss Madeline, uh, who is willing to help to conduct this event and ensure that it's transparent. Hopefully, this activity is useful for all of us, and we shall meet again someday in good health. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, all. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and thank you very much for the questions. The questions were good, and I've left my email address in the chat. If anybody needs to or wants to connect with me, please feel free to do so.
All right, thank you very much, Miss Madirin. So that's all. Long Jin Yong.
Yeah, so before end this session, can we have take a photo or yeah right sorry, who are going to take the picture? Is I going to do it? Is it okay? Jing Hong, are you there?
Hello, sorry, I was off my mic accidentally.
All right. Yeah, I think we got the picture. All right. So thanks again to Miss Madeline. Yeah. So I think our event will end up in this time. So we are very appreciate on that, and hope we got the next chance to have this collaborative event. All right. So thank you.
Miss, cannot hear you.
Bye bye. So for those participants, we already end of this event. So thank you for joining today, and hope you guys get some information on the employee and the employment trends and the hiring trends about fresh graduate student. And also, if got some junior here, please take note that what we can do in this time. All right. So that's all for our event, and thank you for joining us. Bye bye.